In terms of espionage, Reggie Middleton is a middle-aged man who works in the financial district. He has good body language and sits up straight. He wears a button-down shirt with his sleeves rolled up and jeans. He often makes a lot of eye contact and pauses when he's changing thoughts. He also moves his hands a lot when he is explaining things in detail. Well, what most people know is that the U.S. is an imperialistic country. It's one of the largest countries. What most people don't know is how the U.S. Exercises and wields its power. One way is through social economic means. The largest shareholder is one of the largest financial institutions in the world, is the U.S. That financial institution is the IMF. Well, what the IMF does is it's like a pawn shop or a loan shop for countries that get into trouble. So when a country has finances that are bad, it cannot help itself. IMF it helps the country get more money and gives it a loan where it has high interest that also helps the U.S. get money back from that loan. In order to keep these loans, the country has to do what the IMF says, and so basically the IMF is allowed to take over another country. In terms of espionage, in terms of social political manipulation, the U.S. is also very advanced, that it has its hands in several areas. For instance, in my last answer, I mentioned how the U.S. used access to social media to fan the flames of uprisings in other governments. With access to the internet and by almost all social media companies, as well as hardware manufacturers and software manufacturers that facilitate this access to all American companies. The U.S. is able to control government. If these governments become hard to control or really difficult, they can inflame insurgencies and take over these governments. They do it not by coming over with guns, which is the high friction, hard way of doing things, but they simply enable the opposing party with open communication and social media networks. And I wouldn't be shocked if they also aided it with encryption. To hide it from the standing government, you have seen this in Syria, through the Middle East over the last 2 or 3 years. As for what benefits other countries may get from the U.S. intervention, or quote-unquote helping, well, that really depends on the stance those countries are and how they stand in relation to the U.S. You have countries allied with the U.S., such as Israel, Great Britain, and these countries get significant assistance, technological, financial, etc. And they have mounds of benefits from their alliance with the U.S. So basically, it all depends on which side of the fence you stand on.